Are you a Medicare agent that is only getting one sale from your client at each appointment? Either a Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement plan, and then you're gone? Have you ever wondered how top agents cross-sell during appointment? Or have you hesitated to pitch additional products because you were afraid of screwing it up? Our guest today is here to help me teach you how. I'm really glad to be joined by my friend Gaylan Hendricks, a managing partner with Integrity Marketing Group and the Queen of the Bundle. Good morning, Queen.
Hey. Should I call you King?
I don't proclaim myself to be the king of anything, but you are clearly the Queen of the Bundle. I'm so glad to have you here today. You and I have had so many conversations over the course of the last couple months, and talking about our agents and cross-selling and which products and why don't they do it. And I'm really glad, since you were up here visiting with us, that we can try to share with our agents today.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, so many, Gaylan, of our agents say they would offer products like cancer, critical illness, or hospital indemnity, if they just knew how. And you know, a lot of times we'll say, well, you just have to ask, but that just really isn't enough. I thought maybe we could walk through like 2 example scenarios to role play how our agents should pitch, let's say cancer products, for example, to their Medicare clients that they've just sold. How's that sound?
Great, and I'll tell you what, you're already ahead of the game. Your agents say they can sell it. Most time we hear agents say, my clients don't want that. But I look at that like you do, and I'm like, how are we writing all this cancer business with our partners at Aetna and all this dental, vision, and hearing with our partner Manhattan if clients don't want it? So kudos to your agents for that. I think one of the most interesting things that I love to talk about is the McDonald's employee.
Like Ronald McDonald, Big Macs and, and
like
chicken
when
nuggets?
You go get your quarter pounder.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to be shocked by this, but they have a 97% attach rate. And when I say that, a lot of agents say, what is an attach rate? What that basically means is that when you're going into your clients, you've got to ask. That's McDonald's key secret sauce.
Wait, I think I have this because I'm a former McDonald's employee. I've talked about that. That was my first job. I'm not gonna try to steal your thunder, but I'm guessing, would you like to make that a value meal?
Well, that would be Wendy's.
Oh, okay.
But McDonald's copied it.
Okay.
And then they started saying, hey, would you like fries and a shake with that? It's always the way. I love what Zig Ziglar says. Sales is the same for any product you offer. It's asking first, educating second, and then gaining trust third. A McDonald's employee does that, right? Yep. They ask you if you want fries and a Coke with that, or fries and a shake with that. You say yes, because those are the best fries in the world. But they don't say, hey, Bill, do you want fries? You may gain 400 pounds, and that shake may give you, cancer. They don't say that. They just ask. But they ask it in a way that it sounds pleasant to the ears, the hearing. And one of the things that I think's great is when an agent does finally get the nerve to ask for the cancer plan or for a short-term recovery care, a dental, vision, and hearing, because that does take some courage when you've done it the same way for so long. Okay. But we're in a place now where we're competing with TV commercials. We hear our agents all the time say, oh my gosh, they're still in my business. They're doing this, they're doing that. Well,
You're talking about Joe and JJ still in the business?
Yep. Joe doesn't know, and JJ's not the way. They don't have a license, by the way. You do. You are more important as the agent to your client than their doctor. Doctors don't work for free, neither do we, but when we serve that client, we absolutely deserve that commission, right?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the cancer plan just for a minute.
Okay.
Lots of good stuff has happened in the world of Aetna. If y'all have not been watching your Pacesetter or your emails from NNF, they got a big raise on the Cancer Commission. So I want everybody to think about this for a minute. You go to work for McDonald's. I know I'm picking on McDonald's today. They must love the branding they're getting from
Hey, you know what? I got a real good start there.
Okay. Yeah. It works out good. It's good training. Apparently, you're here today. Yeah. But if you pulled up to a McDonald's and the employee on the other side of the window, for every $1 they sell, they got 80 cents of that dollar, plus a $25 bonus For every client that pulled through that window that bought a cancer plan, would you go to work for McDonald's?
I'd still be at McDonald's.
Right.
I'd be rolling it up on
Right.
on the value meals and the shakes.
Right. So many of our agents don't realize that they got a 25% increase. The 55 went to 80. Our next best competitor pays 60. And we're paying 80% to the agent. Now, I don't tell you agents that just to get you excited about the commission, because we have to do what's right for the client. But let's talk about the Med Advantage sale. The first thing we get is an agent going, I don't want to spend an hour and a half with a client. I don't have time during AEP.
Well, the other thing, Gaylan, that our Medicare Advantage agents will tell us, and I think what probably would be helpful to them is maybe we can role play out like the end of the Medicare Advantage sale.
Yes.
But what we hear from our Medicare Advantage agents a lot, like talking about cancer plans, is they hesitate to bring up cancer plans because they don't want their client to then ask them the question, so you mean this plan that you just sold me doesn't cover me if I get cancer? Like that is a legitimate fear. I'm not saying the fear is legitimate. I'm saying there are legitimately agents who fear that conversation, which is almost the sole reason why many of them don't bring up cancer products.
Well, it's a legitimate objection, but it doesn't mean it can't be overcome. And it should be overcome, and you would rather overcome it then instead of when your client goes to the best oncologist that is not in their network and they find out they're not going to be able to be treated there. Or worse yet, they don't have a cancer plan, they can get treated there, but they don't have the money to pay the max out of pocket.
Yeah.
So what I educate on is how to bring that negativity into the presentation, but do it like the McDonald's employee. You know, now we can't say, well, I guess we could, because can't means you're unable, right?
Yep.
You shouldn't say, do you want cancer and nursing home coverage with that? Because what you just told a senior citizen is they're going to get cancer and they're going to end up in a nursing home.
And beyond that, too, the implied message is the plan I just sold you doesn't cover those things, because they're hearing both of those, I think, at the same time.
Well, you know, so I would love to be Dolly Parton. I know everybody's thinking, where is she going with that? I've been doing this 38 years, May 12th. I have a reason and a method. But Dolly Parton is one of probably the smartest people in business today. She's the most giving. But the reason people cling to her is because she's like us. She's like one of us. And one of the things that she has said that I have gravitated towards the most is it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. Now, we all laugh about it because she's Dolly. But that's kind of the way we have to position a Medicare Advantage plan. Because we've been taught our whole entire lives, Bill, that nothing worth having is free.
I'd agree. Yeah, that was a lot of the objections when we first started rolling out Medicare Advantage products in 2005. I can remember standing in front of rooms in Harrisburg and Roanoke, Virginia, and Indianapolis, trying to explain to an agent, no, this is legitimate insurance coverage. There just isn't a premium. What do you mean? You can't get something for nothing. Like that, the first couple of years of Medicare Advantage, there were many agents and consumers that thought, no, this
Too good to be true.
Too good to be true.
So what I've learned to do is to take what that negative is going to be and do something I learned 38 years ago, and that's overcome it before the client asks about it. One of the biggest mistakes agents make today is, that's why they get all nervous about an hour presentation going to an hour and a half. The truth of the matter is your presentation should be around 45 minutes, especially in a Med Advantage sale. If you read the disclosure properly, which I know you all do, but the biggest complaints that carriers get is that their clients think it's zero out of pocket, not zero premium, or their doctor left the network. And one of the things I've started figuring out is how do we overcome those objections before they happen at claim time? And we've created a lot of tools that we're providing all of our partners at Integrity. One of them is a thank you card. And when you're going through the disclosure form, you can tell your client, hey, I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to protect you against this 20% out of pocket. And those of you that have give back dollars in areas, we have a great presentation for that. One of the things that you want to always do is say, a lot of times these premiums are zero, but there's some benefits missing. With this give back program, you can invest that in other products. And you should be using that for more insurance, not going down to the Chickapoo Casino or taking your sons and daughters out to lunch. Matter of fact, they should be taking you out to lunch, Mrs. Jones. You did their raising. So
well, I can tell you this, when I'm 70, the kids better be taking me to lunch.
That's right.
Because I've done a lot of taking to lunch.
That's right. And I'm not 70 yet, if that was implied.
That was not.
So anyway, getting back to what's so important to your client is when you're going through that disclosure form is really your assessment. That's how you're assessing your client's financial needs. And if you as a health agent don't understand how important you are to your client, that you're more important than their doctor, because without you, doctors don't work for free. That's the first thing. The second thing is doctors are not afraid to ask those patients for anything. If they think they're owed $3,500, they're going to ask for it. So we have to remember we're there to do business, but you are Mr. and Mrs. Agent. If you haven't figured this out, you are not only that senior's advocate, because they don't have many advocates in their life. They're lonely. And a lot of the social workers at hospitals were cutting the last Medicaid cuts. Same thing in nursing homes. So the more you can really just explain this to them and take the time. Remember, seniors are rushed in everything they do. Getting on an airplane. You travel a lot. Yeah. I travel a lot. And I will see people just rushing these seniors down the jetway. And I literally one day was stopped dead in my tracks and I said, I wished I could go back when my mother was still living and not be that one saying, Mom, get in the car. Mom, we got to go in the doctor. Mom, we got to do this. Mom, we got to do that. So now what I do is I tell that little senior in front of me that's walking slow, I'm always the first one to say, hey, we're all going to get there. You take your time. I don't want you falling. And you can just see this resolve. They're just like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Because they look behind them and they see all these business people like in New York City running down the jetway, and it just makes them a nervous wreck. So slow down the disclosure. Don't be afraid of what the disclosure says. You're reading the government's plan to your client. These plans, we have to remember, are temporary coverage. They're 12-month plans. Carriers get to decide at the end of every season if they want to renew that plan or if they want to change that plan, redesign the plan. We've seen that for years.
You're exactly right about that. One of the analogies that we make to the regular viewers of the show is we talk about how it's like this is in sports. It's a 1-year contract.
Yes.
You know, and
you're a free agent every year.
A free agent every year, and that's why AEP is always such a crazy time. Mm-hmm. But you're exactly right about that. You know, whether you call it temporary coverage or a 1-year contract, it's the same thing. That you're buying coverage for that year with no guarantee the coverage will be the same the following year.
That's right. And the way you're plugging up that disclosure, and I'm going to coach everybody to quit using the word gap. Quit using the word holes, because it does make it sound like it's not the best plan in the world. I use the word hurts. And the reason I use the word hurts is because if you don't have that money in the bank, it's a financial hurt on you, first of all. It's a financial hurt if you do have the money in the bank. But the burden becomes when you have to call your adult children and say, I got diagnosed with cancer. They are part of that 87% statistic that's in the Aetna brochure. And they say, but they're not going to start my treatment until I pay $3,500 or worse yet, $8,300. And they start seeing their zero premium plan go like to $645 a month, because if you were to take that $8,300, and I know you sell a lot of plans that they'll never get to the CMS $8,300, but some areas where we have the give back programs, they're going to pay that $8,300 MOOP, and that goes to $8,900 next year. So what's great about when we were talking about the 1-year plan is to be able to say, but I'm feeling this hurt right here with permanent protection. It doesn't matter what temporary plan you take every year during this time of year, you're going to get to keep these plans, and you are going to be able to sleep at night knowing, and I'm going to leave you a thank you letter, and then I'm going to leave a thank you card for your son or daughter. Better yet, I would love to have their address and phone number so that I can inform them of the decisions that we made today for you. Because I want them to know you care so much about them that you don't want any of this burden, these hurts, falling on their plate. And if that client says, well, I truly can't afford that, then you still want that son or daughter's phone number, because that's who they're going to check with. And we don't want them to spend 30, 60, 90 days checking with their son, Bill, or their daughter, Gaylan, and now they've got cancer. So we want to stop that right there. We want to ask what that phone number is, what their name is. Let me do my job. Let me call them with you here or while we're on the phone together, and let's inform them of what the plan is, what the premium is, because Mrs. Jones, they would rather spend $1 a day than pull that money out of their 401k. Because if they have to pull that money out of their 401k, not only are they taking from their retirement, they're also paying a penalty on it.
Yeah, that's a true story.
So it gets you another client too, because once you've talked to the son or the daughter, you've gained instant credibility that you're not the guy just in there quick pitching their mom or dad. And then you can start talking to them about protecting their own families. So for those of you that are in the underage 65 market, this is another way to pick up a client and get a longer lifetime value, and getting them at the youngest age possible keeps those rates stable and they won't see rate increases.
Yeah, that's true. I'll tell you what I think would be really helpful. Let's go ahead and role play the end of an MA appointment. And then I think it would be great for our agents to hear how I'll be the client, you can be the agent, how you would then pitch the cancer product or open the conversation and walk us down that route from the end of the MA appointment, just to give them something to hear that they may be able to repeat to help offer their clients package of protection.
And I want to say before we forget, because we want to keep these things short and sweet, because we want y'all to keep watching, we do trainings. NNF's a partner. If y'all need training, you need help, call your partners here at NNF, and they'll get me on a call with you, and we'll take care of all your questions and give you good answers. So the first thing I would say to my customers, I'd say, Mr. Correa, thank you for trusting me today and putting your insurance plan with Humana or Aetna, XYZ carrier, whoever you're writing. And then I would simply say, but CMS requires that we go over this disclosure. Now, as I go over this disclosure, I'm also going to talk to you about other products that I would love to build in your package of protection. The reason I talk about a package of protection is your base plan, the one I told you was a temporary plan, a year plan, that one is 0 premium. You're going to have your son or daughter come into the house, and because this is what I did with my mother, and say, Mom, let's look at things. Let's make sure we're spending our dollars right, making sure everything's taken care of. Because agents, you've got 2 types of kids. You've got the kid that's worried about his inheritance or her inheritance. And then you've got the kid that's worried about the money they're having to supplement their parents' income.
And there's a lot of those.
There's more of that than the first one.
Yep.
And I will tell you, I was that kid, and the way I did it where it wouldn't insult my mother, I would say, just monthly, I want to go through, make sure that we're spending our money right. You're not in trouble. I don't want you to ever think that. But I always talk to my clients that way because, one, their children should be talking to them that way, number one. Number two, they also should be able to say, hey, Gaylan said when she was out here that the reason I spent this $30 on this cancer plan right here, and it'll be on their thank you card, and we'll give that to you guys to give to your agents, but it'll simply say this 30's for this 30's for that, and so forth. A lot of times you guys are writing hospital indemnity because it's easier just to talk about everything instead of cancer, but you're overloading the premium with too many riders. And that's why carriers are having horrible persistency. And Bill, we heard it this year when we were talking about all the different bonuses and things that are out there, app bonuses that, carriers want better persistency from our agents. Well, one of those things we've got to worry about when we're talking about persistency is in the way we go through that disclosure form. That's what's going to build your persistency better, because you're hitting those hurts and you're explaining why you're going to spend X. Now, there's two ways to present it. If there's give back dollars, we're going to invest those first. And then if we do the grand slam, hey, y'all, it worked for Denny's. It can work for everybody. But we want to make sure that we start with the most important part of the hurts, which is always going to be the out-of-pocket for chemo and radiation.
And you're totally right about that, because when we talk to our Medicare Advantage agents about out-of-pocket maximum, and if they're looking at two products, one that may have an out-of-pocket max at $4,500, and maybe another one that the out-of-pocket maximum is in the 7s or the 8s. Almost always our sales team is saying, almost verbatim to this, the only way you're getting past $3,000 is if you end up with active cancer, or you've got some sort of Part B medication. But what is the most common utilization of Part B meds on a Medicare Advantage product? It's chemotherapy. Mm-hmm. So between Part B med chemotherapy, which is a 20% coinsurance, and therapeutic radiology, which is almost always a 20% coinsurance, that's the single biggest point of exposure on a Medicare Advantage product. It is.
Well, that's the perception, but it's not. It's prescription drugs. We saw in 2020 where more oral chemo was prescribed than any other time in history because of COVID. Compromised immunosystems, people couldn't go into oncology clinics. So the prescription drugs, and I'm not trying to be negative Nancy, but we are not going to see transparency in pharmaceuticals for a while. I know everybody's getting excited about 2025 and the $2,000 max out of pocket on drugs. We don't even know who's going to be in office then. We've heard things like this over the years. If you've done this any time at all, those things can change based on who's in the House, who's in the Senate, who's sitting in the White House. And so what I always love to instruct our agents to do is pay attention to the disclosure form. And we have this laid out for you guys. What are the most popular bundles? But go watch the 30, 60, 90 YouTube we do. We're getting ready to reshoot that. It might be great to reshoot it here when we do it. But one of the things we've got to remember is the biggest hurt first. And when we're going through that disclosure, say this 20%, I always love to ask questions that start with what, who, when, where, how, because it gets the customer engaged. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I learned about my mother when she was in the nursing home, seniors are already worrying about losing their memory. So they start learning to recite rhymes so they can remember. So I try to use things in going over that disclosure that'll be triggers that they'll remember we talked about it. And so that when their adult children come in, they can recite it back. They'll have the thank you card, which is the credibility builder. But when you get to that 20%, you can say, Mrs. Jones, what I want to talk about on this 20% right here is this is your maximum out of pocket. If you were to be one of those 1 out of 2 men, you're not, but 1 out of 3 women diagnosed with cancer, or worse yet, the 87% statistic is where most cancers are diagnosed in people over age 50. So while this plan with Humana or XYZ carrier is fantastic, there's going to be a hurt there because you pay as you go. So if you were to fall into this 20%, you would have to pay that. Now, do you know what that 20% is and how it's figured? Now, the reason you want to ask that, it's not going to cost you a sale. It's going to ensure that you're going to be her agent from here until death do you part. Because you're doing something different than any other agent. If she called that 800 number, she's going to be asked for an MBI number, date of birth, bam, got you in a plan. You're basically telling her what her plan's going to do and why you're so important in her life right now. Well, that 20%, a lot of our clients think that's like $200, $2,000, or they forget about it altogether until they're diagnosed. And the number one thing that clients say, Mrs. Jones, is that my agent didn't tell me that. I want to make sure that your agent's told you that, but I also want to be that agent that protects you against that. So we're going to have to spend about $30 to $45 right there, because insurance is not free. That's why CMS doesn't allow us to say free, because it's not. You've got zero premium, but it doesn't mean you're not going to have to pay something. There is no insurance program out there, by the way, Mr. or Mrs. Agent watching this, where they have 100% coverage. The government employees have some of those coverages, but we don't as people. And doctors have no problem asking you for your out-of-pocket. No problem. This is what you owe. Can't go another step further. You pay this. So we explain that. We tell them what it's going to cost. And if they literally say, well, I can't afford that, that is the perfect thing for them to say. And they should say that. And we're going to say, okay, it's either going to be you pay $1 a day now, or you may not can afford zero premium. So maybe we need to talk about a Medicare Supplement plan where you can manage your budget better. Now, most Medicare Advantage agents, Bill, go, but that's going to cost me my commission. No, it will not. It will keep you your commission. Because one thing that we've noticed in our environment in the last couple of years is we have this little thing called disenrollment season, where agents are fighting agents for a customer up to 5 times sometimes. Well, if you do such a good job that first time, you don't have to worry about that.
Well, and you're totally right about that. I can remember my very first day in the insurance business, August 13th, 2003. And I can remember getting a phone call. I don't remember if it was from Eric or Alice or Tom or Maggie, but they called and said, hey, instead of coming to the office for your first day, you're going to meet us at the Holiday Inn in Greentree. And I was like, what's going on at the Holiday Inn in Greentree? We're having an insurance training meeting. Some of our agents will be there. So meet us over there and then we'll go to the office. I said, okay. So the training meeting that day.
That was hardcore training.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was for sure. So it was Standard Life and Accident, Marty Martin and Debbie Knowles. I know that you know them.
Very familiar.
Yep. So we go to the Holiday Inn, and I remember sitting there and didn't know anything. I can remember I didn't even know about the insurance benefits I had at my previous job, which was at the country club where I met Eric, because I didn't sign up because I was a 23-year-old kid. I was like, I'm not having that money taken out of my paycheck. I'm going without benefits. The key takeaway from day one in the business was I'm listening, and Marty Martin said something that stuck with me forever. He said, if you put one product in the house, it's a transaction. That person is not a client until you have 3 products in the house. And if you have 3 products in the house, that person will never leave you.